Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like every choice you make isn't truly your own, but rather a reflection of what others expect from you? Your parents, your partner, your friends, maybe even your boss? You catch your reflection in the mirror, and something feels off, like a part of you is silently screaming, begging for freedom. But that voice is drowned out by a life you never really wanted. That's what Carl Jung tried to teach us, something most people never have the courage to face. The biggest battle you'll ever fight isn't out there in the world, it's inside you. So let me ask you, are you living the life you truly want? Or are you living the life others expect from you? Once that question is asked, you can't unhear it. It lingers in the back of your mind, stirring memories of all those times you said yes when you wanted to say no, of every decision you made just to please someone else rather than feed your own soul. The problem is, we're raised in a world that teaches us it's selfish to put ourselves first. As children, we're trained to prioritize others by obeying our parents, meeting expectations at school, or doing whatever it takes to fit in. But no one ever talks about the cost of that. That's what Jung warned us about. Every time you deny your own needs to please someone else, you create a tiny hole inside yourself. At first, it's almost unnoticeable. But over the years, it grows until it becomes a gaping emptiness that starts swallowing everything around it. You can try to fill it with work, money, shallow relationships, or distractions like social media, but it won't go away because that emptiness doesn't come from a lack of external things. It comes from betraying the one person you were always supposed to protect, yourself. Why do we do this? Because we've been conditioned to fear discomfort. The discomfort of saying no to someone we love, of being seen as selfish or rebellious, of being judged for not meeting expectations. But Jung teaches us that discomfort isn't the enemy. In fact, it's a signal that something important is happening. When you feel that inner tension, your subconscious is trying to get your attention. It's telling you it's time for a change. Many people ignore that signal because facing the subconscious is terrifying. That's where we've buried our pain, our regrets, our traumas, and all the truths we don't want to admit. Who wants to open that door? Who wants to face the idea that everything they've built so far might not be what they truly wanted? But here's the thing, that inner voice won't go away if you ignore it. It'll just get louder. You can try to outrun it, but the cost of running is steep. You start feeling drained for no clear reason. Your sleep stops being restful, and anxiety creeps in at unexpected times. Because when your soul is at war, peace is impossible. Let me share a simple metaphor with you. Imagine you're sailing on a boat in the middle of the ocean. At first, the water is calm, and it feels like you're in control. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the boat begins to drift off course. Every little choice you make just to keep others happy, every dream you let go of because it seems too risky, that's like a slight turn of the rudder. It feels like nothing at first, but after years, you look around and realize you're completely lost, with no idea how to get back to where you started. And in that moment, you understand that the real danger isn't the crashing waves. It's the quiet, steady pull in the wrong direction. Now take a moment to reflect. How many of your recent choices came from a place of true authenticity? How many were made because it's what you genuinely wanted? And how many were made just to avoid disappointing someone else? If we're being honest, we often don't choose what we truly want. We choose whatever causes the least discomfort. But dodging discomfort in the short term only leads to pain in the long run. Jung understood this. He said that when we ignore our inner truth, we don't just create emptiness. We create chaos and disconnection. Chaos in the sense that we may be physically present in a place while our mind and heart are far away, craving a different reality, and disconnection in the sense that we no longer recognize the person staring back at us in the mirror. Choosing yourself is an act of courage. It means saying no when everyone expects a yes. It means facing the very real possibility that you might upset people you care about or even lose them. But it also means rediscovering yourself, peeling back the filters and masks you've gathered over time. Jung said that true freedom isn't about doing whatever we want, whenever we want. It's about being who we are without fear of the consequences. Because only then can we build a life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but actually aligns with our deepest inner truth. Here's the hardest truth of all. No one else is going to choose you for you. If you don't make yourself a priority, The world will keep taking whatever it can. Your boss will expect longer hours. Your friends will ask for more of your time. Your family will demand more sacrifices, not because they're bad people, but because we teach others how to treat us. If you don't draw the line, no one will do it for you. And without boundaries, you become fertile ground for resentment and frustration. But what happens when you finally choose yourself? What changes when you stop chasing external validation and start trusting your own intuition? The answer isn't magical, but it is deeply transformative. You realize that nothing compares to inner peace. You begin to see that saying no to what doesn't serve you is actually saying yes to what truly matters. You start attracting people and situations that resonate with who you really are, not with who you've been trying to be. It's as if the universe recognizes your decision and begins to clear away everything that isn't right for you, making space for what you actually need to grow. But here's the catch. This process demands something essential. You have to be willing to face your shadows. Real transformation only happens when we turn inward and look at the parts of ourselves we've tried to hide. This is where many people give up, because facing our wounds is painful. Yet Jung reminds us that healing only becomes possible when we stop running from our pain and choose to look it directly in the eye. Every shadow you acknowledge and integrate brings you closer to feeling whole. With every step in this journey, you feel less fragmented and more complete. When was the last time you truly chose yourself? Not out of pride or impulse, but out of genuine self-respect. If your answer is, it's been a while, or even never, don't worry, you're not alone. Most of us go through a large part of our lives avoiding that decision. But right now, in this moment, you have the chance to change that. Are you ready for what happens when you finally put yourself first? Because as Jung would say, transformation isn't some distant dream. It's already here, waiting for you to take the first step. Close your eyes for a moment and try to recall a time when you felt a deep discomfort but couldn't explain why. Maybe it was that heaviness in your chest when you woke up, even though everything seemed fine the day before, or that hollow feeling in the middle of a conversation with friends when your body is there but your mind drifts off, wondering what's really missing in your life. That feeling doesn't come out of nowhere, and Carl Jung explained it beautifully. It's your subconscious trying to speak to you. The unconscious isn't some distant, unreachable part of us, like we're often led to believe. It's not some hidden world we only access through dreams. Quite the opposite. It's always present, constantly sending us quiet signals, warnings, and reminders that something is off. The problem is, we've been trained to tune it out in the chaos of modern life. How many times have you felt that inner discomfort, that sense that something just isn't right, and told yourself, hey, it'll pass? It doesn't just pass, not until you make the choice to listen. A classic example of this shows up in our relationships. Have you ever been in a relationship, romantic, friendly, or professional, where deep down you knew it wasn't right for you, where the energy felt off, where you didn't feel truly valued, and yet you stayed, maybe because it felt easier that way, or because you were afraid of being alone? This is exactly the kind of situation your subconscious tries to warn you about. The more you ignore those signals, the louder they become. What starts as a mild feeling of discomfort can grow into an emotional crisis, anxiety, sleepless nights, panic attacks, or even physical symptoms with no clear cause. The body suffers when the mind is out of balance. That's what Carl Jung taught us. Connection to the unconscious isn't optional. You can try to run from it, but you can't hide. The unconscious is always there, quietly working in the background, processing your traumas, your repressed desires, and unresolved conflicts. And the more you try to push it aside, the more insistent it becomes. Eventually, it forces you to listen, whether through emotional collapse or through a sudden moment of clarity, like catching your reflection in the mirror and realizing you no longer recognize the person you've become. But it doesn't have to reach that point. You don't have to wait for a breakdown to reconnect with yourself. It starts the moment you choose to listen to that inner voice, the one that may be quiet, but carries immense power. Because as Jung said, all the answers you keep searching for outside yourself are already within you. We just can't hear them, because we're too busy reacting to everything around us. Self-love is the key to opening that door. But here's the thing. The kind of self-love Jung spoke of isn't the surface-level version we often see on social media. It's not just about spa days or treating yourself to a little shopping, although taking care of yourself matters. Real self-love the kind that changes lives, is a deep, unwavering commitment to respecting yourself. It's about being able to look in the mirror, acknowledge your pain, your flaws, your shadows, and still say, I accept myself as I am. Picture a woman named Marina. She's had a steady job for 10 years, been in a stable relationship for 5, and from the outside, her life looks nearly perfect. But inside, Marina feels like she's falling apart. Every morning, she wakes up with a lump in her throat, though she doesn't know why. Even after a full night's sleep, she's still exhausted, and the thought of going to work drains her before she even gets out of bed. So, like many of us, she does what seems easiest. She ignores it. She tells herself she shouldn't feel this way, especially when she has everything society says should make her happy. Here's the issue. Marina's subconscious is sending out signals that something in her life doesn't align with her inner truth. In this case, self-love doesn't mean taking a vacation once a month or going to therapy now and then. It means having the courage to look at her life honestly and admit that she's unhappy, even if that means tearing down everything she's built so far. Because real self-love isn't comfortable. It takes bravery. It requires choosing yourself, even if it means disappointing others, stepping outside your comfort zone and facing the unknown. Why is that choice so hard? Because we were taught to believe it's selfish. From the time we're little, we hear things like, think of others before yourself, don't be selfish, or you can't always get what you want. So we grow up thinking it's wrong to put our own needs first. But Jung reminds us, you can't give what you don't have. If you abandon yourself to please others, everything you offer them is empty. You're trying to fill them up while you're emotionally drained. That isn't love, not for them, and definitely not for yourself. That's why self-love isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, we can't set healthy boundaries, we can't say no when we need to, and we can't build relationships that actually nourish us. Because here's the truth, when you choose yourself, you change the energy that people respond to. Think of it like tuning into a radio frequency. If you're broadcasting a signal of abandonment and low self-worth, you'll attract people who feed off of that. But the moment you choose to respect yourself, something incredible happens. You begin attracting people who respect you too. Take Andre as an example, a man who stayed in a toxic relationship for years because he was afraid of being alone. His partner manipulated him emotionally, crossed his boundaries again and again, and yet Andre kept giving in, thinking it was the right thing to do. Until one day, he made a simple but powerful decision. I deserve better. That moment of clarity wasn't painless. He had to face loneliness, and he had to deal with criticism from friends and family. But over time, something shifted. He started drawing in people who truly valued him, not because he had changed who he was, but because he had finally chosen himself. That's the power of self-love. It doesn't just transform your relationship with yourself. It reshapes how you relate to the world. When you choose yourself, the people who drain your energy begin to fall away, and those who support you remain. That's not coincidence. Jung called it synchronicity, when an inner shift sparks a shift in your outer reality. But be mindful, choosing yourself isn't a one-time act. It's not something you do once and never have to think about again. It's a continuous process, a daily commitment to listen to yourself and honor who you are. Some days it'll feel easier. Other days, you'll be tempted to fall back into old habits. But it's in those exact moments that self-love grows stronger, when you choose to keep moving forward, even when going back feels safer. Now, take a moment to reflect on your own life. How often have you silenced your own desires out of fear of what others might think? How many times have you stayed in situations you knew weren't good for you, simply because saying no felt too scary? Self-love invites you to change that. The next time you feel that inner discomfort, don't brush it aside. It's trying to lead you home, to the person you really are. True freedom only comes when we embrace all parts of ourselves, even the ones we'd rather hide. Have you ever noticed how some people carry an invisible weight on their shoulders, even when everything in their life seems perfectly fine? It's as if they're trapped by something they can't quite name, a heaviness that follows them silently, showing up in their thoughts right before sleep or creeping in during quiet moments of the day. Maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you know that emptiness all too well, that restlessness without a clear cause, but that refuses to go away. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He called it the shadow, the part of us we'd rather not see, yet that ends up shaping so much of who we are. The shadow isn't an easy concept to accept. After all, Who wants to admit they carry fears, insecurities, resentment, or desires that don't match the image they show the world? But here's the problem. The more we try to ignore it, the more control it has over us. Think of the shadow like an unwelcome guest. Imagine your life as a pristine, well-kept house, but there's one locked room you never go into. That's where you stash everything you can't bear to face, your failures, mistakes, and traumas. But over time, what's behind that door starts seeping through the cracks, and before you know it, it starts to affect every other room in the house. Jung said that integrating the shadow isn't about defeating or eliminating it. It's about accepting it as a part of who you are. Think about it. How often have you tried to fix something about yourself, only to realize that the more you fight it, the stronger it becomes? Maybe it's your fear of failure, hidden behind a mask of perfectionism, or your suppressed anger that you hold back to avoid being seen as aggressive, but it ends up exploding at the worst possible times. That's the nature of the shadow. It doesn't disappear when ignored. In fact, silence only makes it stronger. Here's the key idea. What you refuse to see ends up controlling you. When you avoid acknowledging your sadness, it turns into apathy. When you ignore your anger, it shows up as constant frustration. When you suppress your desires, they find other ways to surface, often in self-destructive forms. Isn't it strange that the parts of ourselves we most try to hide are the very ones that shape our choices the most? That's not a coincidence. It's your unconscious trying to balance out everything you've pushed down. So how do you begin to integrate something you've spent years avoiding? The first step is simple, but deeply transformative. Acceptance. Accept that you're not perfect. Accept that you carry anger, fear, envy, and weakness. And before you think that sounds negative, consider this. No one can be whole without embracing their contradictions. Just as light needs shadow to exist, your flaws are part of what makes you real. Acceptance doesn't mean giving in to your flaws. It means stopping the fight against them. And when you stop fighting, something magical happens. The shadow loses its power to control you. Let me tell you the story of Ricardo, a man who spent years trying to be the perfect guy at work, in his family, and among friends. He never said no, was always polite, helpful, and smiling. But behind that was a deep well of suppressed anger, a result of constantly ignoring his own needs. He told himself that being kind and agreeable was the right thing to do. But eventually, his health began to break down. He developed gastritis, anxiety attacks, and insomnia, all because the part of him that wanted to scream, "Enough is enough," had been silenced for too long. It wasn't until Ricardo finally admitted that he was angry, and that his anger was valid, that things began to change. He didn't explode like he feared. Instead, he learned how to set boundaries, and that changed everything. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Our shadow isn't our enemy. In fact, it can become a powerful ally if we know how to integrate it. When you acknowledge your fears, you can transform them into courage. When you accept your mistakes, you can grow from them. When you face your suppressed desires, you can redirect them in meaningful and constructive ways. Jung taught us that the shadow holds incredible potential for growth because it contains parts of ourselves that, when accepted and understood, can actually make us stronger. So how do we put this into practice? Start by asking yourself, what am I hiding because I'm afraid others won't accept it? Maybe it's the desire to change careers, but you keep telling yourself that would be irresponsible. Maybe it's the urge to end a relationship that no longer serves you, but you're scared of being judged. Or maybe it's anger over something that happened long ago. Anger you refuse to deal with because you believe you should be over it by now. The truth is, whatever you suppress doesn't vanish. It just hides and waits for the right moment to resurface. If you think you can control it forever, think again. How many people do you know who, after years of emotional suppression, face a midlife crisis, mental breakdowns, or destructive behaviors? These things don't come out of nowhere. They're the result of shadows that were ignored for far too long. And the longer you postpone facing them, the harder it becomes. But here's the good news. You don't have to take it all on at once. Integrating your shadow is a gradual process. It starts with small questions like, why do I feel this way? Or, where is this emotion coming from? Instead of shutting your negative feelings down, give them space to exist. Write them out. Talk to someone you trust. Seek therapy if you need to. What matters is that you begin to understand your emotions aren't your enemy. They're messengers. Jung said true healing begins the moment we stop fighting ourselves and start listening. Your shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to show you where you need to grow. And when you finally embrace those hidden parts of yourself, something interesting happens. You stop projecting them onto others. How often have you blamed someone else for a mistake that was really yours? Or judged someone for being arrogant, when deep down, you're the one suppressing your own confidence? That's shadow projection. But when you integrate the shadow, those projections fade away and your relationships become more genuine. Integrating your shadow brings enormous freedom. The freedom to simply be who you are without hiding behind a mask. You no longer have to pretend you're always happy or conceal your vulnerabilities. This isn't about exposing yourself to the world. It's about fully accepting yourself. Deep down, we all long to be accepted as we are, without having to hide parts of ourselves just to be liked. So ask yourself, what am I afraid to show the world? That question might feel uncomfortable, but it's the starting point for deep transformation. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes from integrating our shadow. And being whole is far more powerful than being perfect. When you embrace your shadow, you uncover an inner strength you never knew you had. Not because you've erased your weaknesses, but because you've learned how to transform them into sources of power. In the next part, we'll explore how this new, integrated, authentic version of yourself can begin to engage with the world in ways that once seemed impossible. Because, as Jung said, when you align yourself internally, the external world begins to respond. Have you ever noticed that the moment you finally made a decision to let go of something that no longer made sense, everything suddenly clicked, as if the universe had been waiting for that moment to open doors that had always been closed? Maybe it was when you quit a job that made you miserable, and not long after, an unexpected opportunity appeared. Or when you ended a toxic relationship and shortly after met someone who truly saw you. It's not just coincidence. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. Synchronicity isn't magic, but it's not traditional logic either. It's more like an invisible current that connects what's happening inside you to what happens outside. Think about it. When you live in conflict with yourself, when you suppress your emotions, ignore your desires, and force yourself to be someone you're not, the world around you starts to mirror that chaos. You attract situations that echo your inner tension, as if the universe is showing you, through discomfort, that something needs to change. But when you begin to align with your truth, that dynamic shifts. Suddenly, things begin to flow in ways that once seemed impossible. So how does this actually work? Carl Jung believed that synchronicity isn't just a random external event. It's a direct expression of the unconscious, a nudge from the universe reminding you that you're on the right path. The strange thing is, this only begins to happen once you choose to live authentically. Why? Because when you do, you stop resisting the natural flow of life. Instead of trying to control everything, you allow things to unfold. And when you allow, the universe responds. Let me tell you the story of Julia, a woman who spent most of her life conforming to what others expected of her. Since childhood, she had always been the good girl, obedient, hard-working, constantly seeking her parents' approval. That pattern followed her into adulthood, where she chose a safe but uninspiring career. Believing that responsibility meant sacrificing passion, she married a man who seemed perfect on paper. But deep inside, something didn't feel right. Julia ignored that feeling for years, until her body started sending distress signals, migraines, sleepless nights, and constant fatigue, even after rest. Everything changed the moment she finally decided to listen to what her subconscious had been trying to tell her. In a moment of courage, she quit her job, without a backup plan. She ended her marriage, even though she feared judgment. At first, it felt like everything was falling apart. She questioned whether she had made a huge mistake or was destroying her life. But within weeks, unexpected things began to unfold. An old friend invited her to join a project in a field she had always loved, but never dared to pursue. At an event, she met someone with whom she instantly connected. Without feeling the pressure to pretend to be someone she wasn't, Julia realized that by freeing herself from the invisible chains holding her back, she had made space for something new to enter her life. This isn't an isolated case. Multiple psychological studies have shown that people who start living in alignment with their inner values report higher levels of well-being and often begin to notice opportunities they previously overlooked. That's because our brains are wired to filter information based on what we deem important. When you're stuck in patterns of self-sabotage, your attention is focused on problems and limitations. But once you shift internally, your perception of the world shifts too. You start seeing possibilities where you once saw obstacles. But a word of caution. Synchronicity doesn't mean your life will suddenly be perfect or free from challenges. In fact, some of your biggest challenges often appear right when you start aligning with your truth. That's because, in a way, the universe tests your commitment. Are you truly willing to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it means facing discomfort and uncertainty? Think of someone who decides to leave an abusive relationship. The first feeling might be relief, but soon after, fear creeps in. What if I never find someone better? What if I end up alone? This kind of resistance is completely normal. Our minds fear the unknown. We'd rather stay in familiar pain than risk something unfamiliar. But this is where the magic begins. If you can move through that initial fear and stay grounded in your decision to choose yourself, a new reality starts to open up before you. Jung believed authenticity wasn't just a philosophical ideal. It was a psychological necessity. When you're not living in alignment with who you truly are, your subconscious finds ways to signal that something is wrong. That signal might come as illness, toxic relationships, or a sense of directionlessness. But when you choose to live authentically, the opposite happens. Your body, your mind, and the world around you start working in your favor. A study published in Psychological Science found that people who live according to their values have greater emotional resilience and cope better with stress. That's because when you're at peace with yourself, you don't waste energy pretending to be someone else. You can use that energy for the things that truly matter. This not only improves your mental health, but also enhances your relationships and opens up new opportunities. But here's an important distinction. Being authentic doesn't mean being rigid. It's not about forcing your will on others or ignoring their needs. It's about finding a healthy balance between your inner truth and the demands of the world around you. Many people confuse authenticity with rebellion, but Jung reminds us that the true power of authenticity lies in its ability to connect, not push away. When you're honest with yourself, your relationships become more genuine. The people who truly support you will stay. The ones who no longer align with who you are will naturally drift away. And that's not a loss. It's a form of emotional cleansing. Think about it. How many people do you keep in your life simply because you're afraid of being alone? How many toxic friendships or draining relationships have you tolerated because you believed it was better than having no one at all? Jung teaches us that when you begin living authentically, these unnecessary connections naturally fall away, not because you push them out, but because they simply no longer match your new frequency. So how can you begin to experience this synchronicity in your own life? Start by letting go of the fight against who you truly are. Instead of constantly trying to fit in, ask yourself, what am I afraid to show the world? Maybe it's your vulnerability, your ambition, or even your most cherished dreams. The next step is to live in alignment with those truths. Say no to what doesn't serve you. Set boundaries. Follow the calling you've buried for years. Be aware. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. There will be moments of doubt. But the more you stay true to who you are, the more the universe begins to respond. You'll start noticing small coincidences, unexpected encounters, and opportunities that seem to arrive at just the right time. This isn't magic. It's the natural result of aligning your life with what you truly want. And when you least expect it, you'll realize that the goal isn't to change the world around you. The real transformation happens inside. The world doesn't need to be fixed. You simply need to be authentic enough to recognize the opportunities that have been waiting for you all along. In the next part, we'll explore how to stay connected to your truth even when life throws challenges your way, and how to make authenticity a lasting way of life. Because as Jung reminds us, real transformation doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds step by step with every choice you make. Don't miss that chance. Now that you're here, take a deep breath, then feel the weight of everything we've explored so far. Let me leave you with one final question. If today you decided to let go of everything that no longer serves you, who would you be? Maybe you've never truly considered that question before. Or maybe it's the exact one that's kept you up at night, circling in your thoughts. And that's a good thing, because transformation often starts just like this, with a question that won't let you go, nudging you into a new reality. The truth, as Jung taught, is that the path to authenticity isn't about finding something that's missing. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. All the times you stayed quiet, backed down, or chose the safer path, those moments don't define you. They're part of your story, but they aren't the ending. Now, you have a chance to rewrite that story, not with wounds left open, but with scars that tell a tale of strength and resilience. Deep down, Jung said, all emotional suffering is the soul's way of trying to wake us up. It's not punishment. It's not bad luck. It's your unconscious crying out, telling you that you've wandered off course and that it's time to come home. Think back to the most painful moments of your life. How many of them stemmed from decisions you made to please others? How often were you led by fear, the desire to be accepted, or the comfort of avoiding confrontation? And now ask yourself, what might have happened if, in that moment, you had chosen yourself? You might be thinking, but what if I fail? What if choosing myself means I end up alone, rejected, or lost? That's a valid fear. We've been conditioned by society to believe that our worth depends on how much others accept us. But here's the revelation that could change your life. True failure isn't disappointing others, it's abandoning yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are the only person who will always be there. Friends may come and go, jobs may change, circumstances can shift, but you're permanent. And if you don't take care of yourself, who will? Now, picture a version of yourself in the future. A version who had the courage to make tough decisions, who said no to what didn't resonate with their soul, and yes to everything that sparked life within. How does that version of you feel when they wake up in the morning? Who is around them? What are they doing with their time? That version of you isn't some far-off fantasy. It's waiting for you on the other side of the decisions you make today. Because every decision matters, no matter how small. Every time you choose to listen to yourself instead of silencing your desires, you're building a more authentic version of who you are. You might be thinking, but that takes time. And you'd be right. Authenticity isn't a destination, it's a journey. There's no point where you wake up and declare, okay, now I'm 100% authentic. No, because life is always shifting. What makes sense today might not make sense tomorrow. And that's okay. Jung believed that personal growth isn't linear. It moves in spirals. We revisit our pain and our lessons again and again, each time with greater awareness. That doesn't mean you'll always be suffering. On the contrary, it means that with each cycle, you grow stronger, more conscious, and more free. Think back to a recent moment when you said yes, even though deep down you wanted to say no. Why did you do it? Were you afraid to disappoint someone? Did you feel like you didn't have another option? And how did it feel afterward? Now imagine how different it would have been if you had respected yourself. If you had said no with clarity, knowing that it was an act of self-love. That's the power of small decisions. They shape your life. And while it may feel scary at first, the fear fades every time you choose your truth. Because you begin to realize the world doesn't fall apart when you choose yourself. In fact, it begins to rearrange itself around you. Many people who go through this process report a shared experience. At first, there's resistance. People who are used to your more accommodating self might feel uncomfortable or even pull away. But over time, new connections begin to form, deeper, more authentic ones. It's like pruning a tree. Cutting away the dead branches may seem painful, but it's what allows the tree to bloom again. And you deserve to bloom. When you choose yourself, something powerful happens. You stop seeking validation from the outside. Other people's opinions may still matter, but they're no longer the compass guiding your decisions. Instead, you begin to trust your own intuition, that inner voice that always knew what was best for you, but got drowned out by the noise of the world. Carl Jung believed that reconnecting with our intuition is one of the purest forms of healing. It's like reuniting with an old friend you haven't seen in years, one who's always been there, patiently waiting for you to come back. If you're wondering where to start, the answer is simple. Start small, but start now. The next time you feel uneasy about a decision, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, does this choice align with what I truly want? And if the answer is no, be brave enough to change course. That might mean saying no to an invitation, saying yes to an unexpected opportunity, or just giving yourself a moment to reflect. The size of the step doesn't matter. What matters is that you take it with intention. Remember, you're not alone. The path to authenticity can sometimes feel lonely, but it's along this path that you'll find the most genuine connections, people who accept you as you are, not as they expect you to be. And by sharing your truth, you'll inspire others to do the same. Jung believed that personal growth has a ripple effect. When one person chooses themselves, it can spark change in entire communities. So here's my invitation to you. Be the change you want to see in your life. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There isn't one. Don't wait for guarantees. Life doesn't offer them. What it does offer is the chance to begin again every single day. And today, right now, is your moment to take that first step. Feel free to share your questions or stories, anonymously if you prefer. What was the hardest moment in your life when you had to choose yourself? How did you get through it? Let's create a safe space to share, to support one another on this journey. And if this message resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need the same reminder. Every interaction, every comment, every share helps reach more people like you, people searching for their own truth. Thank you for being here, for listening, and most of all, for having the courage to choose yourself. The journey doesn't end here. It's just beginning, and you will never walk it alone. Until next time, remember this: life begins the moment you decide to be who you truly are.